for Sky Hybrid War, created by Jamie Bourne with two hybrids, Maggie and Volt. And they must fight to keep their crowns as rulers of the skies against other combatants. And in today's video, I will be presenting my hybrids into the Sky Hybrid War. Introducing my hybrids, Zotz and Dan. Now you may be thinking, these two may look very familiar, and that is because they are. These two are based off of Rodan and Kamazotz. And since you know who I'm based these off of, you may know what kind of strategy I'm going for. And it may seem similar to Maggie and Volt's strategy, with speed and sound, but it's pretty different. And just let me explain by giving a rundown on the contributors and their purposes. First, I'll do Dan. As you see, Dan is based off, Rodan. Still not will be going for a speed build, but even though I wanted him to be faster than Maggie, which I think is possible, but not with his current size, but he'll still be fast. But first, we'll start his base, which is the Pteranodon. The Pteranodon will provide as a good base since, he's based off Rodan. But it's kind of basic enough to make the proper modifications, which brings in our next contribution, which is for Peregrine Falcon. The Peregrine Falcon is here for his speed build and agility, so he can be fast and agile to dodge attacks and slide past his enemies, which I'll get into why in a bit. But next, on to the next Geno, which is the Harris Hawk. The Harris Hawk provide for teamwork cooperation, so Dan and Zotz can actually work together when they attack together. But we'll come back to this. But on to the next Geno, which is the Bald Eagle. Yes, the symbol of America in a Rodan, but it's here for a reason. And it's for his vision, talons, and his beak. The vision is for good eyesight, talons for gripping to help tearing, and the beak is for ripping and tearing at his foes, which will be increased to become stronger in a bit. But now we're on to the Snowy Owl. The Snowy Owl is here for its feet that can change into dactyl feet, but since it can change its feet to dactyl feet, Dan will also be able to do so. But with all this talk about contributions to add-on offense, we should be talking about some defense, which allows us to introduce the Ruskin Newt. Originally, I just have a Ruskin Newt for his Ruskin as a defense, but while researching, I found out they had glands which produces TTX, aka tetrodotoxin, which can cause paralysis, respiratory failure, cardiac arrhythmias, and gastrointestinal symptoms, which can cause Maggie and Volt's body and organs to paralyze and fail, which can cause the demise if it decides to bite Dan, which can cause a quick KO. But we can't stop there, because they might always bite. So on to the next Geno, which is the Vampire Bat. The Vampire Bat is here for iron distribution and anticoagulant saliva. The iron will help strengthen Dan's talons and claws for ripping and tearing. And also, originally I had heat vision, hoping to have Dan have his eyes switch between heat, night, and regular vision. Wrong about this part. But instead, I can use the Vampire's bad habit of being communal to strengthen Dan and Zotz's bond and teamwork. But I can't apply the iron to Dan without a certain rodent, which is the northern short-tailed shrew. The shrew is just here for iron distribution, so let's go to another short one, which is the opossum. The opossum is here for its immune system, mostly for its venom and poison resistance, but I'll just take the whole immune system. So let's get to another short one, which is the Borgischi Crawher. The Borgischi Crawher is here for its inner ear plugs, so Dan doesn't get affected by his loud companion or foe. But up next is the third of Vlass, which is Hatchigopteryx. The Hatchigopteryx is here for size, but Dan is generally the same size as a regular Pteranodon, but a little taller. But if he was out of the war, he would be the size of a hatch, maybe bigger. But it's just here for precaution for size. But he can be bigger, but just not in the war. But on to the second to last Geno, which is the African Grey Parrot. The African gray parrot is here for its intelligence, so you can collaborate with Zots. But also, I'm adding the voice memory so Dan can talk in a deep, raspy, creepy voice. But last but not least, wrapping things up for Dan is the Tropionaphis. Tropionaphis is here for water adaptability, so that means Dan can also swim, which helps because since the rescue works wet or moist, having water adaptability helps so the glands can actually work. Now that we've got Dan out of the way, let's get on to Zots. For Zots, most things won't make sense at first, but it'll make sense as I go on. But let's go on to the base, which is Vostok's Vampire Bat. Vostok's Vampire Bat will provide as a base, but also a way to get iron. And the reason I picked this is because it's a big bat. And Kimazos is also, well, a big bat. And of course I know there's bigger bats, and I did find out about a bigger carnivorous bat called the Spectral Bat. But I was already devoted with my genomes, and I was already too far to go back. So we're just stuck with the Stock's Vampire Bat for now. But it will help us get iron and as a good base. But we can't just be big but still small. So we're going to need to get bigger. And now we're going to the next component, which is Hashigopteryx! A Hashigopteryx is just here for size. But there's something I feel like that needs to be explained. If I can use the Hashigopteryx for, and it's the hands. But to elaborate, I'm going to take the wings of the bat and make it have 3 distinct hands like the Hashigopteryx while having 2 fingers for the wings memories. For flying, since bats have 5 fingers, I want it to be able to fly but also have a grip. So I use the Hashigopteryx so so Zots can have 3 to 6 fingers for grabbing, gripping, and climbing, and the 2 longer distinct fingers for him to be able to fly with the wing membranes. But with that bit out the way, on to the next genome, which is the African gray parrot. The African gray parrot is, well, here for intelligence. And while I was typing this part, I looked up to see if bats are smart, which they are. And they are considered highly intelligent animals, being social animals and impressive problem-solving skills. So I'm going to combine both intelligences of the Stock's bat and the African gray parrot, which the parrots can understand concepts like numbers, shapes, and colors, and able to solve problems, mimic and use language, and remember details. With this, both Dan and Zots will be able to devise plans, and also with both of them having similar vampire bat DNA, they'll be able to help and take care of each other, since bats are social and communal animals. And with this sweet information out of the way, we'll head on to the next genome, which is the pangolin. The pangolin is here for its carrots and scales to protect most of its tail and arms from getting hurt when getting attacked, which aren't the most vital areas. They still provide protection and give that camouflage look of his scales on the body, which are mainly on his tail and arms, which hopefully won't interfere much. But since now we went over this part, on to the next genome, which really make this camouflage, which is the silky rooster. The silky rooster is for his crow, as well mainly chickens can't crow. And secondly, silky roosters have a decibel ranging from 90 to 140 decibels, which make him loud, but we want him to be lethal with his screech. So we will be adding more, and we will be making him loud as possible, since Dan has the Burgess Craw for internal earplugs, but still realistically loud as possible and lethal. Which brings us on to the next genome, which is the Greater Bulldog Bat. The Greater Bulldog Bat is here to add on to the decibel value, as well as these other genomes, which the next one is the howler monkey. If you see videos of howler monkeys, you know they're loud, especially in groups. And it will help make Zots loud, and it's time to add the next genome, which is ribbon seal. For this part of the video, it gets weird, mainly because I was doing this part of the script. I want to make sure I gave credit to where it was deserved. And the seal I originally had was the harbor seal. But I had got it wrong, which was actually the ribbon seal, suggested by Tyson. And I would like to take the suggestion because it could be beneficial, because they said ribbon seals have air sacs that can store oxygen in muscles, which is stored in a protein called myoglobin, which is usually used by these aquatic creatures, but can be used so Jots can burn more oxygen, which means more energy and stronger flight, according to Tyson, which is actually beneficial. And I could have had both seals, but I don't have enough room on my information sheet. But Jots will still be able to have a big range of decibels for sound attacks, which will be expanded more later. So let's move on to the next genome, which is the prehensile tail porcupine. The prehensile tail porcupine is shaped for its quills, prehensile tail, and teeth, because I found out while researching that the prehensile tail porcupine has iron teeth. So with the vampire bat, it will have double iron teeth. Which reminds me, episode 3 of the Skybrid War, it said the spread of iron can only be achieved with both vampire bat and northern short-tailed shrew. So yeah, both Dan and Zots just have that in them. So with the porcupine, Zots will be able to grab anything with his hands, feet, and tail. He will be able to swing his tail to give his enemies a face full of quills, and be stabbed with quills when grabbed. And will have a very lethal bite, which will truly make Zots a lethal opponent. But now it's time for the second to last of Zot's genome, which is the snowy owl. The snowy owl is here for severed feathers for silent flight, but not for the wings, but for the ears, because Zots will be so loud. He'll need a way to make sure he doesn't hurt himself with his loud screeches, which will be very helpful with his screech attacks, which leads us to the last and final genome of Zots, which is the Harris Hawk. Similar to Dan, Zots has the Harris Hawk for teamwork, but something I realized is that vampire bats are communal and social creatures, taking care of each other. So even though it doesn't say on the information card, I'll be adding vampires, bats, communal and social behavior, along with the Harris Hawk for teamwork, for hunting and territory defense, and also forming a group. If both these males ever get a mate, if I ever mention if they're males, creating a small group or colony being of that hybrids that pretty much have a symbiotic relationship. But now that we've got over each one of the hybrid genomes, we'll be going over the battle strategy. I don't know how many strategies I will have, but I'll be telling you how it will work. The first start of this, I'll be saying areas feel likely to be in the zone, which will be near the ocean, so the rocky coast or sandy beach, in the forest near a lake or river, if the mountains inside or nearby any caves there, and probably near any open field, mainly near a train track, since I bet would like to see trains pass by and probably screech and squawk at them while playfully chasing them pass by. And I bet you may be asking why these areas, and that's because most of these areas will have water, which are beneficial for Dan, since it needs to be wet or moist for his tetrodotoxins to work. And not only that, they'll both will be able to climb trees, cliffs, and walls. So whenever Team Mimic is near, they can climb up for a sneak attack on them. Now we can truly go into the battle strategy, which I'll be combining two scenarios I made up of where Dan is bait and where I have both of them work together. So here we go. Dan and Zots are flying across the ocean when suddenly Zots hears a sound far away that's behind them. It's Team Mimic. Zots informs them about the incoming team and he devise a plan. They know that Team Mimic is smart, but they're also smart. So they devise a plan for using Zots' sound and Dan's speed. Josh goes hide in the brushes while Dan flies around to get teammates' attention when they finally come. He flies around and swoops past them to get them annoyed. As soon, as soon as they start chasing him, they fly out into the ocean, but not too far, so Josh can catch up. When they get far enough, Dan flies up and then back down, zooming past down there. Then he uses his internal earplugs to plug up the ears. He knows what's about to happen next. As soon as he dives past the two, suddenly there's a loud screech. As the two turn around, it's Zot. He's here to make sure they can't hear them. But the both of them get affected by that screech. Vault is more effective than Maggie, with him having those more noticeable ears. Maggie losing partial hearing, but two are disoriented and can barely hear as they chase after Zot as Dan gets ready for the next part. As Team Mimic chases Zot back to the shoreline, Dan goes down to the water and takes a quick splash to activate his tetrodotoxin just in case he needs it. Then he goes after the duo to make sure Zot is alright. While Dan is chasing after Team Mimic, while they chase after Zot is moving as fast as he can. And suddenly Maggie starts to catch up while Vault is slowly behind. And suddenly Zot starts using his oxygen reserve to start pushing him back to the shoreline and make sure he lands on land, not in the water. But as soon as it's close enough, he gets pushed down by Maggie onto the ground where he's stuck. And then Vault shortly arrives. And then as soon as Vault shortly arrives, there's suddenly a flash of red going by as it hits Vault. It's Dan. He moves Vault out the way so they can have an even fight. While Maggie's distracted by Dan's arrival, Zot pushes her off and he runs towards his brother. And then suddenly the two pairs take off. Speed versus speed, sound versus sound. As soon as Maggie and Dan get alone, they start going higher and higher into the sky, try to gain the altitude, see who can get there first before they sloop them back down. Maggie, of course, gets there first since she's faster, but Dan is getting closer. Soon she zooms by down. As she zooms down, Dan moves out the way to make sure she doesn't hit him. And as she misses him, he starts to proceed as well. It's a speed race back down to Earth, seeing who can get down there the fastest. Who can survive without getting hurt. And it's getting neck and neck, close and close. Maggie going first, and Dan close behind. The two of them duking it out, try to get down to the ground first to attack the other. While this is happening, Vault and Zot are having their own fight as Vault is trying to hit Zot with his hammer attack, but Zot isn't trying to let that happen. So he goes for a small thicket of trees near the shore as he climbs and flies through as Vault is struggling. Eventually, Vault gives up for now and goes to help Maggie again. As Zot goes and hides in a tree, waiting for the duo to make their next move. As Dan struggles against with Maggie. As the two fast flyers make their descent to the ground, suddenly Dan hears the sound of Vault as he smacks him with his hammer attack to the ground as he tries to brace for impact, but having a rough landing into the earth as Maggie calmly lands down as the two land in front of him. While they're distracted, Zot moves around since their hearing is as good as it used to be, and pretty much Vault is deaf, but almost recovering his hearing. And while we're about to finish off Dan, suddenly Walt is grabbed by the neck as Josh grabs him and takes him away as he starts biting, clawing, and scratching at him as Maggie just stands there in shock as from the sneak attack. And before Maggie can do anything, there's suddenly a snap. Vault is dead, being killed by the doubling iron teeth of Zod. As as Maggie tries to fly away, Dan goes after her, grabbing her by the talons as they lock talons to each other, flinging and flailing around. While Maggie is trying to get him to her direction, Zod gets into control and brings her down to earth. And then suddenly, the duo are grabbing onto her. Zod's grabbing her by the neck with his tail, and Dan grabbing her by the talons. Both of them are dragging her along as she struggles to set herself free. Suddenly, the two throw her down to the ground as Zot goes for a small feet forward stoop as he pushes onto Maggie as the two start biting at her and scratching her. And then suddenly, the two stop with her beating up. But suddenly, Zos grabs her by the tail and starts dragging her towards the coast of the shore. And then, right before she knows it, she's dropped into the ocean, even being left to the mercy of the sea, as she is too hurt to fly and flail or try to get at the water. As the two kings screech victorious, as King Monster has just won. Alright. Now that we're doing that battle scenario, which is kind of wanky because I just came up with it. Because I had two scenarios, as I said, but I didn't like them being two, and also it would have been very time consuming, so it's kind of messed up for the scenario. But pretty much what I'm going for. But hopefully you guys like this scenario. And now that we got the two kings, which are Team Monster, out the way, which I'm hoping they'll get a rank of Apex or maybe around being high leveled, we'll go on to the Joke Hybrid, which are Void Worm and the bioluminescent jewel bugs. The Void Worm is basically just a worm with black hole and void Ghidorah powers, and the bioluminescent jewel bugs are here to provide color to this war. Which, as I've seen for previous videos, that like that one hybrid bot by I believe Chicken from Mars with the as dark it with the ability to stand out on two legs. This isn't here to fight. So I decided to bring my bioluminescent jewel bugs that are from the Rhino Bug competition into here to bring some life into this Skybrid war. And I'll provide the info cards for both of them as well. And also, I have another team which I submit on Discord called Team Wyvern, which I'll probably make a quick short about that after this video. But hopefully, you guys have enjoyed this video as my first voice recorded video. And well, it's kind of gonna be wonky since I stutter a lot. But hopefully, you all enjoyed this video. And hopefully, next time I'll have more time to do something like this, or also have better speaking experience. As you see, I'm stuttering right now, so I'll just end the video here. So hopefully, you'll enjoy this video and see y'all next time.